Hi there, Josh Hanish here with 329, and we have another special episode with Kevin and I talking about the fact that pretty is not your problem. And it's a term that Kevin coined one day when we were talking, and I wanted to dive into this with him while you are all watching to talk about proper website design and how that actually involves a lot of consideration for messaging. So before I continue, I'm going to bring Kevin on. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, to be a special guest again.
Yeah, exactly. So I know when we put this up on LinkedIn earlier in the week, some people were surprised and were a little like, what do you mean pretty's not our problem? Like when we want a website built, we want it to look gorgeous. Like it needs to look on brand, current, all those things. And we, to some people, might be saying the exact opposite, but that's actually not the case. You and I both come from the school of thought that, I mean, obviously every website should be built fast with current design in mind, and it should look aesthetically pleasing. But if one big thing is not looked at on the website, that ROI, that the money that you spend on that website is not going to give you the ROI that you want. So why don't you, I love what you have to say about this. So why don't you talk about what your thoughts are?
Sure. So the way I would start it is that good design is what I call table stakes, right? You're not going to hire an agency, you're not going to hire a designer without the expectation that at the bare minimum, you're going to have a better quality of design, a more modern quality of design than what you currently have, right? We know companies redesign sites every 5 to 10 years, which is actually too long of a cycle, but that's another conversation. And so design to me, good design is baseline. Like you have to do it, right? And so what we're running into and what I'm talking to people a lot about is a redesign project is a business problem, right? And part of that is yes, it needs to be on brand and it needs to look good. Like we're not trying to say that those things don't have to happen, but what everyone's doing is everyone's missing the input, and that input is content and layout strategy, right? And they just think I can take the content I have, I can port it over to new design, and I'm going to have increase metrics of whichever I want, right? I'm going to have increased conversions or more traffic or more page views or any of this. And the thing is just the design is not going to solve that problem. um, and that's really the impetus behind my talk and when we talk to clients about this.
Yeah. And I love how you frame it as it's like a business problem, and how a lot of businesses, a lot of clients, some of them are really good about thinking of their website as a tool, and some of them, some business owners that I've talked to, it's more of like an afterthought. And because either their business is happening more in person, and they don't necessarily like view their website a lot, or their clients, they may not think their clients do, and their website is just as important as their physical location. We build virtual locations or virtual business storefronts, and just how people care about the signage, the messaging that goes in front of a business and how that business looks, that same look and feel, that same importance should be put on the website, because nowadays so many people are obviously starting online, which I know is kind of like obvious to a lot of people watching, but so often we get caught up in the aesthetics, and that is important. And like you're saying, any agency you go to, they should be able to design you a gorgeous site. But we're finding that very few of them actually talk about what is the feel you are wanting to convey to the person looking at your website. And that happens in the first 3 seconds, which is why above the fold, or for people that don't know, the top part of the website that loads right when you type in the URL, click on the link, is the most important piece, and your messaging with your design has to be on point. So I know you've got a couple of examples.
Yeah.
You're ready to dive into those?
Yeah, let's start with HubSpot.
Okay.
So the reason I chose HubSpot is HubSpot's site is on brand. It's nice, right? But I don't think we'll look at, like, say, the Shopify site in a minute, which I actually think visually is more impressive than the HubSpot site.
Yeah.
So here we have a site that's not leaning super heavy into just creative, right? And what they're showing is what you get and what you do. And they're talking about pain points, and they have a strategy around the content and how they're moving users through. And HubSpot's a huge, huge organization, right? So they've got tons of people on this kind of stuff, and they do a lot of A/B testing. So they're good examples to look at. And one of the things that we see here is right up front, they've got this bar, which is a completely different color than almost anything on the page, right?
Yeah.
So that's design, and that drives your eye there. But then when you look at it, you have problem and solution. Instantly resolve 50% of customer questions, and support ticket overload. So they're not coming in and saying, we HubSpot is a CRM, or we are an email marketing platform, or we do, visitor analytics software. They're not telling you, hey, HubSpot's a SaaS product for you to buy. They're telling you our software will help you instantly resolve 50% of customer questions. It'll help you end support ticket overload. And then down below, they layer it on with HubSpot, you can have it all, right? So you can have everything is this idea, which if you're in the Marcom world, we're all cobbling different tools together and integrations, and it's difficult. So here's a site that visually is fine. It's nice, like their brand is good, but really where they're doing a great job is in the messaging, right? You don't get into what HubSpot is until over a third of the way down the page. They don't
Right.
tell you that they're an AI powered customer platform until you've already scrolled an entire screen, right?
Right.
So that first piece, to your point, that first top is, this is what we do for you. The design's good. It's not fantastic, right?
Yeah.
It's not like super modern or really catchy.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's a little hard to follow.
yeah.
And also just continuing that analogy of a physical storefront versus a website, when you are going to a business in your car or you're walking there or whatever, you know why you're going to that business. And when you walk in, they're not like, oh, hi, we sell X, Y, and Z. Like,
Right.
a website is the exact same way. People have the intent when they are going to your website, when they are quote unquote getting in their car or typing in Google or typing in the URL. And when they
Hmm.
get to your business on AKA your website, they want to know how can you make their life easier? How can you make their life better? Not, oh, we're an online CRM. Like, no kidding. Like, we already knew that's why we came to you.
Right. So let's actually look at one that does that I think is really interesting. So this is Zoom Info, right? And so Zoom Info is, you can get B2B data, and their initial text here is the go-to-market intelligence platform, which to me is just like marketing text, right?
Right.
Like, this doesn't really mean a ton
Yeah.
when we compare that to one of their competitors, which is Apollo, right? So again, Zoom Info, the go-to-market intelligence platform,
Really,
typically hit.
real quick, go back to Zoom real quick. I'm
Okay.
sorry, to Zoom. So just real quick, you could argue that this website is designed really well. Like,
Yeah.
it is a night, like you can tell they put a lot of time and effort into the colors they picked, the
Mhm.
background, how it's laid out. So it is a quote unquote pretty site.
Yeah. It's very modern, right? They're
Yeah.
calling out areas of their site. You have different sections with different pieces of content to drive different places. It's designed very well, right?
Right. But
But
the
its
initial,
first message is to tell you what it is.
exactly.
And no one that's coming to Zoom Info is like, doesn't know what Zoom Info is,
Right. You don't
right?
just accidentally stumble upon Zoom info.
Correct. Right. So, okay, so then let's look at Apollo, which is one of their competitors. And I looked at this today. Now, I have a couple issues with this because I don't like when you're swapping messages,
Yeah.
but they're very quickly telling you the only tool you need to do what. So, grow your business, which is overused in the industry right now, but find and engage leads. So, if this is your only message, you
I
hit
agree.
this page and it's like, oh, this is what I need, right? I need
Yeah.
to find and engage leads. Apollo is my answer. Now they do a lot of stuff. So you have optimized calls and managed deals and all this stuff. So I think they're running into a problem of their software does a lot and they don't know the best way to kind of show that. But this message very upfront is telling you we are the tool to help you find and engage leads, right?
And I wish they would have led with that. Like, I feel like that is why people go and use Apollo is because they want to find and engage leads. Everything
Right.
else is just bonus. Like, oh, cool, you're gonna make it easier to reach out to them.
Right. And the site, this is also well designed, right? Again, a very large organization. They're going to spend a lot of time on design. And so to your point to start, like we're not saying you shouldn't you should just we're not trying to get Craigslist out of everything, right? But
Right.
you want to have a design. You can see both of these sites are well designed. But the problem with Zoom Info is that it's just telling you we're a customer intelligence platform. Apollo is telling you the problem that you have that they help you solve, right?
Right.
And that is the thing that we're seeing people miss. They want to make sure it looks really nice. Great, like table stakes, it needs to look really nice. But what does it say? How does it drive people through? What is your strategy for conversion? Right? There's a reason why Apollo has two buttons here, right? Same reason why Zoom Info has their email info field. But to the point, Zoom Info can probably do better of saying, "Hey, this is a problem we're going to help you solve," right?
Yeah.
Even though their design looks good, and at the medium to say large, Zoom Info, Apollo, these are kind of like enterprise level brands. When you move down and you're talking to medium, large, and small businesses, they're not thinking about these things, right? And I think that's part of the reason it comes up a lot in our conversations.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I think anyone that's watching this right now would agree with us in terms of like, this just feels more helpful. This feels more caring. This feels like they can help me. And that is what brand does for a company. And that is how brand is appropriately applied to a website through the messaging and the aesthetics. It almost looks like that person's in a coffee shop. Green is a really pleasing color.
mhm.
Like Zoom is like very like stark, kind of in your face, not super helpful. It's just like this is a tool and it's kind of cold and it
Mhm.
doesn't give me the warm fuzzies.
Yeah, and I mean they even have this like legal speak here that I'm highlighting, right? By sending in a form, you agree to receive AI call from Zoom Info, which to me is really interesting. Like, I'm good. Like, I don't want AI calls.
Right.
Uh, right. And you go back to Apollo and it's like, hey, we're the tool you need, and you can request a demo or get started, but it's just a very different feel,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And again, both designs, again, we're not going to Craigslist, but we need to start to think about this. We need what is the message and what are we trying to get out? Because we are X, or we manufacture Y, or whatever isn't what people are looking for. They want to know the problem that you're going to help them solve, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
They're already coming to you knowing what you do.
right.
The problem that needs to be solved is what is the first feeling you want them to have in the first 3 to 5 seconds when they put their eyes on the page after it loads.
Exactly. Right. So you want to see the one that I think does it the best? Well, one of the best ones I've seen right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is Shopify. So we're going to look at Shopify and WooCommerce, which are two platforms we use for e-commerce sites. Shopify, before we get into the messaging, is designed very nicely, right? It is very modern, big photos, large text, kind of what's in style right now,
Yeah.
subtle animations. It's they put a lot of time and effort into the site, like no questions asked, right?
Yeah.
So again, table stakes, right?
Yeah.
Their messaging, I think, is fantastic. This again, it cycles through, which I don't know why I put to that, and it's not my thing,
Yeah.
but they are selling, right. Be the next unicorn startup. Be the next household name. They are selling this vision that somebody who comes in and starts a Shopify site wants.
Yeah.
Right. I developed this product in my garage. I'm going to go to Shopify because that's part of their market is super micro small companies, right? It's
Yeah.
somebody who's fulfilling out of their house and they're selling the dream. right? Be the one to watch, be the category creator, um, be the unicorn startup. They never in here say, until we get down a little bit, we are an e-commerce platform. They
Right.
are selling the dream and they do it really, really well. The design's great, but the message is what's super powerful.
Yeah.
And again, you go down the one commerce platform behind it all. So now they're telling you, okay, we're a commerce platform, right? They don't even say e-commerce anymore because they have kiosks and all this stuff. But I just think it's a really strong, they have a really strong brand and it's a really strong message, right? If you're coming in and you're a really small business trying to sell, this is going to hook you, I think, every time, every time.
Yeah. I mean, immediately when you switched over, it was just like, I just feel successful already, like just
Right.
looking at it, which I would argue that they could just get rid of the scroll and just have be the next and maybe change some of the where it says dream big, build fast, and grow far on Shopify. Could leave that and maybe add to it these different categories. But I love Be the Next because Shopify is the platform for people who haven't quite made it yet or have made it and
Right.
aren't sure about what an e-commerce platform would do for their business. And
Right.
so it's perfect messaging for that demographic.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good. And when you look at, I'll show the other one. So this is WooCommerce, which is the competitor. So I was actually looking at this the other day, talking to a client. Shopify has like 26% of the market share, and WooCommerce has like 21-ish. So they're very close, very competitive. Um, but WooCommerce's message, I do like that they only have one upfront message,
Me
right?
too.
And theirs is forget cookie cutter e-commerce. And what they're pushing against is there is a little bit of this idea that all Shopify sites are kind of the same, they all function the same. It's
Yeah.
really hard to get really strong brand out of Shopify. And they're saying, like, hey, you have more flexibility. You don't have to be this like cookie cutter. So it's a good message for them. And then secondary leading into trust. And you'll notice both of those are above a typical. So my screen set at a typical laptop, they're above the fold. So I think their messaging is really good. Their
Yeah.
design's not as good, right? The brand is not as good, and that's kind of my point with it is this design is good. We'll say Shopify's design is great.
Yeah.
Their messaging, Shopify's messaging, I think, is great, and WooCommerce's is really good. And I think it's just interesting to see how they're playing against one another.
Yeah, for sure. And, and again, I think this is speaks exactly to our point. If you were just looking at WooCommerce, like you said, the design is okay. Like I give it maybe like a B, but the messaging is a plus, which
Right.
means that the design becomes less important. And I'm not saying design isn't important, but as I stated at the very beginning, design only is not going to get you the ROI that you want on your website. Like for those dollars you spend on your website, you have to pair it with really good messaging.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. Like the reason I bring it up is so when you're at Shopify's level, right? You're this huge, huge brand. You've got a really large team of marketing people. You're doing, like I said, A/B testing, all these sorts of things. And what happens is you get the company will get to a certain point where they start to have the money to invest in these things and think about these sorts of things, kind of in an internal team. And what the reason I bring it up is because when we're talking to people, a lot of times they're not even thinking about it, right? And so you have to think about this stuff because if you just come in and say we are X, we are a software company, we are a CRM, you're just going to get lost in the minutia, right? uh, and if you can start to talk to people about what you do for them and have that messaging and that strategy, the design paired with it are going to elevate any brand above the competition.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, people ask me like, what should I be looking for when I hire an agency? And I would say that I always tell them like, obviously design, you need to make sure that they will design a very well built, beautiful
Mhm.
website. But if they're just a dev shop where they don't really have any concern for branding or any expertise around how to accurately convey the message of your brand, then I would say that that would not be a good fit for that client because if the client either has, like to your point, isn't thinking about their brand or has never thought about their brand, when you're building a new website, that is the perfect opportunity to have that conversation, to figure out what it is that you're trying to say. So I think you've got to have the build, and then you also have to have the brand expertise.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and that brand and that messaging, right? Like, what are we trying to tell people?
Yeah.
And if nothing else, if people go in and the next time they do a project, they actually think about this, or even look at your current site, right? Try to look at it and say, okay, what does my current site say? And my current site says I am X, right? Then change a headline, right? Adjust some sub copy. It doesn't have to be like a full redo from start to finish, right? You can go in and look at it and say, okay, my site just says what I do, and it looks really nice, but I need to think about what content I'm relaying, and I need that content to speak to the customer,
Right.
right? And that's step one. Like, start there if nowhere else.
Yeah. Which we see that all the time. I mean, it would be cool to A/B test, like to have a client not like, if the client came to us and we're like, we want to rebuild our site, and if we were like, no, we're just going to change your messaging, like that might not go over well. But we do that all the time with landing pages, where it's like, we don't really change the design much, but we change the messaging, and we can see the spike on conversions just from changing the words alone. So to your point, people that are watching, they're like, well, I don't really have the budget to rebuild my site. You will notice an impact if you change the messaging, because we see it all the time on our landing pages that we run for ads.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can do it with the ads too, right? How often do we change the ad, leave the ad creative, but change the copy and the content, and then you see again a spike, right? So again, you can't throw design out completely, but what I'm seeing a lot is that while the design is coming up, the people are not thinking about the content and the strategy, and it's important, right? And it will make a major impact on how the site functions in the end.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any questions or want to talk about your website, please reach out on LinkedIn. Be more than happy to talk with you. Hope you have a great day, and stay tuned for our next